What's up everybody, we just got a brand new Overwatch PTR patch, including some buffs and nerfs for Sigma, a few minor tweaks for Bastion, and some pretty scary looking nerfs for Symmetra and Zarya. Plus, where's the new content that Jeff Kaplan was talking about? This is Master EN Gamer, and let's get into it. So to start off, let's quickly look at all the brand new hero changes. Looking at Sigma, Hypersphere's explosion damage reduced from 35 to 30. Now this is only the area of effect around the explosion. This does not count as a direct hit. The direct hit will still do the normal 60 damage, but now he does slightly less damage on the area around it. Experimental Barrier added a toggle option for deploying Sigma's Experimental Barrier. What this basically means is it's the same way as like with Soldier 76's sprint ability. Now instead of only being able to deploy the barrier by holding down the ability button, you can instead just click the ability button once, it'll go out, and you click it again to make it stop moving. Also, while this option is on, you can't just hold down the ability button to summon back the barrier and automatically deploy it again. Holding it down will work just like a toggle, in which case you summon the barrier back, and then you have to press the ability button again in order to send it out. I'd kind of like if both of those aspects were set on different settings where you can have the toggle for deploying it and then the toggle for calling it back separately, but still, it's nice to get this option for players who like having Sigma work just a little bit differently. Accretion, explosion damage increased from 50 to 60. So again, this isn't the direct hit damage, which is still 80, but rather it's the splash damage around the projectile itself, which has been slightly buffed, thus making accretion just a little bit more effective at dealing damage. And Gravitic Flux, intro cast time increased from 0.4 seconds to 0.6. Basically, this just slows down his ability to use Gravitic Flux. It means he can't just activate the ability and just grab people quite as quickly. It's not a huge nerf in this regard, but it just slows it down a little bit. So overall here, he's got some mixed balance changes. I am a bit surprised that he didn't get any buffs or changes at all to Kinetic Grasp, which I still consider to be his weakest and worst feeling ability. I talked about this quite a bit in my video yesterday where I was going over the issues with Sigma that he currently has. So hopefully we will see some changes to that ability in the near future or maybe a little later down the line. But for now, Kinetic Grasp looks like it's going to be unchanged. However, Sigma did get one final buff, which wasn't technically a buff to him directly, but rather nerfs to Symmetra and Zarya. Symmetra primary fire beam width lowered from 0.3 meters to 0.15 meters, and beam DPS per level lowered from 65, 130, 195 to 60, 120, 180. Likewise, Zarya beam width no longer scales with energy and is now always 0.15, and max beam DPS lowered from 190 to 170. Now, these may sound like pretty unfair nerfs to just throw into Zarya and especially Symmetra, but they do seem like sort of a response to the changes they got a little while back, which made their beams a bit more consistent, and as a result of that, they're able to deal a bit more damage. And while that did seem to be a nice little buff for the heroes, especially Symmetra, who kind of needed it, it does seem like Blizzard is interested in scaling that back a little bit. And it seems like the best way they decided to do that was to make the beams themselves a bit more narrow and to not deal quite as much damage. This is a change that I'm definitely interested in getting a feel for since I do play quite a bit of Zarya, and I am quite interested in seeing how this ends up impacting her effectiveness. The reason I say that this is a big buff to Sigma though is that Sigma is hard countered by beam heroes, especially Symmetra and Zarya, so by nerfing these two heroes, technically Sigma got a decent little buff in addition to all the other changes he got directly on this patch. And last for the hero changes, Bastion self-repair no longer consumes resources while Bastion is at full health. This is an amazing quality of life change that he should have had basically from the beginning, let's be honest. I don't know why it ever depleted while he was at max health, but I am so glad to see that they finally fixed this. But in addition to it, he got an ever so slight nerf. Bastion now correctly initiates 0.25 seconds of recovery time when canceling self-repair with weapon fire. So basically, it's just this very brief sort of delay between healing and being able to shoot. So it's going to make it a bit harder to just quickly toggle between healing and shooting, which of course is then going to be a very very slight nerf for him. Yeah, I don't think he really needed a nerf. I think he probably could use some decent buffs, in fact. And when I first saw that he was getting a hero update in this patch, I got excited, but it's not really much of anything other than a slight nerf and quality of life change. So hopefully Bastion has something good for him in the near future, but just not yet, it looks like. Now that does it for the hero balance changes on this current PTR patch. However, there were a number of workshop updates as well. I won't run through all of these specifically since there's quite a few of them and a lot of them are very specific and in-depth. One interesting tool which was added is the ability to create a dummy bot, which is essentially just a player who's not actually controlled by a human player. That'll be an interesting one to see what people can come up with, because basically you can just make any AI character you want, theoretically. So I am excited to see what people can come up with for that. However, I will also note that despite us being now in the latter third of August, we still have yet to see whatever new content Jeff Kaplan alluded to that will be coming out sometime around this time. As I'm sure many of you saw already, I talked about how this new content will almost certainly be a brand new map, and that we can expect it most likely within the next week or so. So I was a bit disappointed to see that they didn't just include it with this recent PTR patch, and I did a bit of exploring on some of the usual map suspects to see if there are any little subtle changes that might be hinting at a new map, or maybe even hinting way farther down the line at a new hero, but so far I wasn't able to discover anything. So I don't think there are any really hidden updates on this PTR patch. It seems like it's mainly just the workshop and slight hero balance changes. However, I will keep you guys all up to date with any new changes that are announced after this, but in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on these hero changes by leaving a comment down below, and as always, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and share with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.